What's going on, everybody? This is Brent0331, and I got a special guest tonight. And here he is. This is Dimitri.
Hi, you guys.
With X-Logic Reticles, and that is his company. You guys have probably seen his design. He's the creator of the ACSS reticle, or Advanced Combined Sighting System, and it's featured in many primary arms optics. And it's just, in my opinion, it's probably the best combat friendly, grunt friendly reticle out there. And man, I've been a big fan of it for years. And you and I have been friends for years. And I thought it'd be a good idea to have you on the show tonight, man. So welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me. I feel honored. It's a funny story how we crossed paths and met and all that stuff.
Yeah, 100%. So let's go ahead and tell that. I mean, because it is really funny. So I'll just go ahead and start it off. Like, you used to have a YouTube channel. Can't remember, it was like One Lost in Space or something like that. But for those of you that don't know, Dimitri is actually a big camouflage fan. Like, he loves camouflage. He's actually designed his own camouflage patterns in the past. And that's kind of how I got started on YouTube, is doing those camouflage effectiveness videos. Well, Dimitri used to watch those all the time. And he would be one of those guys that just routinely comments on different patterns. And if you're one of those people, like, I start recognizing screen names of people that are continuously posting. And so I started to recognize him quite a bit. And then one day he reached out to me and he's like, hey man, you interested in, trying out some optics? And from there, I guess you could say our relationship started. So
I catch a lot of flack from Brent and Ken and Bruce, because the UCP pattern works out here where I'm at, and make fun of me all day long over it. I like it because it works in my desert, and I can get all these packs and all this stuff really cheap. So, and to me, it's like an urban Marpat, really, or urban night vision type,
I mean, I wasn't going to throw you under the bus and go down that path, but I can tell you guys with 100% certainty that there has been a text thread between Dimitri, Bruce, and I that has been going on for like 6 years. And it's just back and forth of UCP sucks. No, it doesn't. Here's how it looks and my terrain. And then we'll be like, well, it sucks because of XYZ. And then it never ends. It's been going on for freaking 6 years.
Well, it's such a universal pattern, right? Like, you can have one pattern and do it all. But in my deserts and urban, it matches the colors actually pretty well. So,
but I think, and honestly, I think that's why it gets the hate it does, right? Because UCP stands for Universal Camouflage Pattern, right? When they rolled it out, they were like, hey, this is one pattern for everything, right? Fucking woodland, desert, urban, snow, everything, the whole gamut. But the reality is, it's not. It's very good in certain settings, right? Very good. And it's actually really good under night vision. It's probably one of the best under night vision.
Right.
But
so that's what it was designed for, is night vision, urban kind of. I think it's still, we could have saved billions of dollars. I mean, look what Bruce did to his with a little bit of dye. So imagine if they issued a dye kit, depending on what terrain or wherever you end up, you get to dye your uniform that perfect color. Peter, go away. Sorry, my dog is very nosy.
I still think the Marine Corps has done it right from the get-go. We introduced Marpat in late 2002. It really didn't roll out deep until like late 2003. But I mean, we've had the same two patterns and literally the same uniform, to be quite frank. We issued out frogs at some point during the GWAT, but we've had the same uniform since that time. The Army has already gone through multiple iterations of uniform changes, camouflage pattern changes. And I mean, it's just, it's a testament to the pattern's effectiveness. And I think you'll agree that Marpat Desert works really well out there in your desert as well.
Oh, no, it's really hard to beat. Multicam out in my area, when you hit the really tan areas, is way too green. And it's hard to beat Marpat, in the woods and in the desert. And you can take the desert pattern right into urban and still match, pretty well. Same with the woodland. I mean, there's so much trees and stuff in most areas that you could or green, so you can, blend in pretty well.
Yeah,
But
I've got some pictures of when we were doing a workup for Afghanistan, and we're wearing our desert marpats because that's the uniform we're going to Afghanistan with, and we're in the combat, town, the mountain town, and that desert marpat blended in great in that urban setting.
the only thing I don't like about any of the marpats is I wish they made the 3-day packs and the full pack in those patterns. That would be awesome. That's the only thing that I wish, and you can get the AOR version that costs like $600 or something.
Yeah. I mean, that's the Navy's stuff. So, yeah, I know the Marine Corps went to Coyote gear, which, I'll go one way or the other on that. So I think where we went wrong is, we used to issue out flak covers, right? If you were going to the desert, you had a woodland flak, and then if you're going to the desert, you got a flak cover to go over your flak vest, right? But the thing that covers the whole torso, right? So it's like what really silhouettes you. And then we just went away from that because of Molly. So there really hasn't been a good substitute. So
it'd be nice if they made like like the mag pouches and all that stuff and in the actual pattern, because then you would cover up all the the coyote. But
honestly, I think if they would just allow us to do our own camouflage with rattle can, I think that would just mitigate so much stuff. But there's so much bureaucracy in the military that it's just like with the all black rifle, right? I would love to spray paint my rifle in the Marine Corps throughout the years, but it's absolutely a no-go unless you're like freaking recon or a sniper or something along those lines.
So I dealt with some of the gunners on the optic selection, and that was like mind-boggling to see how stuff works.
Yeah.
It's there was like, I'm not going to mention any names and throw people under the bus, which I probably should, because doing a big disservice to our guys having to to be in combat and have to sit there and do math. It's just that doesn't that doesn't make sense to me. But to show them the ACSS and show them how it works and how the wind holds work and how the range estimation work, just stuff that's just common sense. And all they were concerned about is matching up warehouses of ammunition they had to one reticle, which I explained to them the Griffin mill can do that, but I don't recommend any kind of mill type system for your average, infantry, Marine or soldier to have to sit there and calculate while a bullet zips by. This doesn't make any sense. Plus, you're shooting what? You're shooting M855 or M855A1. You're talking about a cone of fire that's going to be way bigger than any kind of mill firing solution. It just doesn't make any sense. But funny story is that guy's wife is a Marine, and she looked through it was the ACSS Aurora TA-31 at the time. And she goes, oh, wow, this has full height, half size ranging, all my wind holds, my leads, everything is set right in front of me. And I said, yeah. She goes, this is amazing. But they didn't want to hear it. They're already set. So have you seen the reticle coming and the new VCOG coming out pretty soon?
Yeah, it's all MilDOT.
Oh, MilDOT. And the thing is which is fine, but the MilDOT start at 5 mils. 5 mils, you're like at 600 meters. That's gone beyond the effective range of most 5.56. It's just that's not what it's for. So there's no hold off 300, 400, 500 meters. I can't say go down 2 mils to right. There's nothing there. It's just space. So that it's going to be rough. It's going to be guys are going to have a tough time shooting further out with those things. But
so I remember I've got my own experience talking to a gunner, and gunners are good dudes generally. They have a lot of experience. They go through a lot of training and whatnot. And but sometimes I just think they miss the mark, man. And this is a prime example, right? So it's like before that VCOG came out, I was talking to a gunner about it because by this time I've had extensive experience with ACSS. I had the TA-31 with Aurora. I went out to Vegas with you. Shot that known distance. Range with it. And, he was talking about the new LPVO that was coming out. and how it's all mil dot. And I'm like, well, you know, and I'm not a mil dot guy. Like I'm not a freaking sniper with extensive experience on that stuff or anything, but you know, I'm a grunt, right? I have extensive experience as an infantryman.
Right.
And I'm like, you know, you don't have fucking time to do mathematical equations on unknown distance targets. Like the Aurora and other ACS variants were so easy, right? You could use either that, you know, the hash marks on the BDC, or you could use, you know, the vertical height, you know, ranging bars. It had so many fucking options, and they're unbelievably effective. And that's why we could go out to places like Nevada, unknown distance, you know, see a target out there, get a quick range estimation, and then shoot. And within, you know, 1 to 3 rounds, you're generally hitting that target with those easy mass already computed for you. And I said this to the gunner, and he's like, well, you know, we need to quit pretending that our Marines are stupid. You know, they're smart and they can. And I'm like thinking, dude, I'm not saying they're stupid, but you don't have fucking time to do mathematical equations on the battlefield while you're fire team rushing an enemy. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on.
So I know the mill system. I design optics, right? So I know the mill system like the back of my hand. And I can't do that math. And I don't mean like under stress, there's rounds going by. I'm talking about you got 10 seconds to make this shot, right? And to take you through the math, let's say center mass, roughly 18 inches. You got to go 18 times 27.77, get that number, and then divide by how many mil dots fit the guy, equates to range to target. Then you got to look at a sheet and what your dope is in mils for drops. So let's say 2.5, and now hold 2.5, figure out what the wind is doing and look at my wind. Okay, 1.5. Who's going to do that, you know? I mean, you could see like the international sniper competition that they have every year. Your average team, not one guy, a team, is taking up to a minute to mill a target and actually engage it. And that's with a spotter, with a spotting scope, you know? So what the ACSS basically is all that math pre-done and etched on the glass. So it's all symbology. You're just fitting the target at the correct drop, and it's already range estimating. So all you got to do is figure out what the wind is doing and hold off. That's it, you know? So,
right. And even on that, like many of the ACSS reticles have wind dots in them.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the sniper competitions. I remember hearing from you years ago, like one of the biggest reasons for missed shots was wind calls, right? Incorrect wind calls.
Number one, as far as like analog, right? If you're using a Raptor, like where the laser rangefinder already is range to target, which we'll get into lasers. That's a whole other story. You get range to target and automatically shows you dope. Those are fairly quick, but to actually do it analog, let's say you have a near peer threat and you want to be completely passive, or the battery's died and you're having to do this on your own, you know, it's a nightmare of math. You need 2 calculators, to where with an ACSS, I can do that fairly quickly. That's especially for LPVOs and prisms and that kind of thing, any kind of medium range type, you don't need that type of level of precision. And out here where I'm at, you guys have seen it, it's like open field, right? So good luck getting an actual signal on a torso-sized target, especially if it's moving or if it goes prone. It just doesn't work. And one of the main problems I've ran into is like, because I have some pretty expensive lasers, and they work great when you're bouncing off a mountain or some trees. But often what's happening is here's the reticle, and the actual beam of the laser is not lined up to the reticle. It's actually pointing over here. So if you were to point that at the target, you're getting the signal, you're getting the range to target here, not where it's at. So you have to like scan and figure out and do the figure eight and figure out exactly where your beam actually is. And a lot of people picture a laser beam. It's not a laser beam. It's like a cone. It's like a cone of fire. It's like like on a PEC when you illuminate, and it's the same thing. It's like like a flashlight. So I've had a lot of false readings on lasers out here, and things don't work out how they are supposed to, you know, with the laser. So I think for your average guy, 0 to 500 meters, something like an ACSS where you can range and engage is key. There's no time, right? It's all happening so fast. and it's loud. How are you going to communicate mills, and like all hell's breaking loose?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody denies it. Like mills are, an excellent way to range,
Sure.
objects and people. But it's just simply speaking from an infantryman's standpoint, where it's like, time is absolutely essential.
Right.
And when you're in the middle of fire team rushing, moving from one position of cover to another under fire, like, and trying to deliver, accurate rounds on target to the enemy's position at the same time, like that's a lot of shit going on to sit there and try to do mathematical equations. So
And it's different tools. Like your average grunt's not going to use a big high high magnification scope with mills like that. That's, you're talking about a sniper team or a DMR guy. You're going to use something like this, like a 3x prism, a 5x prism, a 4x prism, a dot with a magnifier. Stuff like that is really more designed for that. So it's a different tool. It's like you're trying to use a hammer as a screwdriver. So I don't
what what is your opinion on like fixed power optics, like an ACOG, for instance? It's 3 or 4x, and LPVOs, like the versus the plus and minuses, pro and cons in those.
So I think a 4x, a lot of guys say, well, I can't use a 4x in CQB. I think you can inside a room, something up close, both eyes open, you can overlay and okay, come on. Sorry, my dog's over here. You can overlay and be fairly fast, but once you go past 25 meters, it's really hard to pick up targets, especially if they're moving, and be able to go both eyes open and find them through an ACOG. For me personally, I run an RMR on top to do stuff like that. It's and people say, oh, you got to train more and get reps in. Sorry, there you go. So what?
You took my key.
I don't think
I'll jump in since your old lady's hitting you up for some.
Yeah, her car keys, and now I don't know where I put them. You found it? Okay.
So, like me personally, like going from having a fixed carrying handle to getting a reflex sight to then getting an ACOG later on in my Marine Corps career, and that's kind of where my ground pounder days stopped, because as a sergeant major, I don't do any door kicking in the Marine Corps anymore. But I've been out there in Nevada and shot with you, and I've used an ACOG out there. I've used a low power variable out there, and there's no doubt that having a low power variable in your setting out there in Nevada is like absolutely just fucking awesome, right? Having that that more magnification. But I've also shot out there with an ACOG, and I've also hit those targets at 5, 6, 7, 800 freaking yards away with the ACOG on a 5.56 rifle.
Sure.
And it's like, I think about my combat experience in in Iraq, and the ACOG was absolutely would have been pivotal. I didn't have an ACOG when I was in Iraq, but I had one when I was in Afghanistan, and it's absolutely phenomenal optic for just overall combat engagements. But I absolutely recognize, the benefits of having a low power variable optic. But I'll say, like, there's just no time for this. When you're moving in an urban setting from rooms to the next thing, you're probably taking shots at a target down the street that might be 300 to 500 meters away. So, which is what happened to me in Najaf in Iraq.
Right. So I guess let's break it down, right? So when it comes to up close CQB, hard to beat a red dot, right? Hard to beat like the Cyclops, where it's a 1x prism with an edged reticle. Okay. Problems that you run into with a red dot, you're dependent on a battery, so you need backup sights, right? Another problem that you can run into with a battery is you hit white light, and all of a sudden, I mean, with a red dot, is you hit white light and you lose that dot. It has to be bright enough to deal with the flashlight. And for some reason, flashlights are getting brighter and brighter. I don't understand what that's about. It's like more lumens, I guess, sell, you know, but you really don't need this huge flashlight indoors for like home defense, that kind of thing. Like, I don't recommend guys go get some crazy flashlight that just like blinds everybody. So, and the problem with the red dot is you can't shoot it further out. It's really hard to go with a red dot and hit stuff past 300 meters. You got to know your holds, and then if you run into wind, that's an even bigger problem. ACSS microdot has BDC out to 600 yards. That solves some of that. The Pegasus reticle has all the auto ranging. That solves the ranging issue, because that's another problem with red dots is there is no ranging, right? So between the range estimation and the lack of magnification, your hit ratio further out drops off dramatically. It's hard. And that's kind of what I try to solve with the ACSS microdot and the Pegasus is it has the BDC and it has all the auto ranging that you need. So that's the red dot. Okay. So then we're getting into the 1X prism, like the Cyclops. Big advantage to that is that it's etched. So if the battery dies, you're still good to go. You don't need backup sights. You just use what you got. If you hit white light and it washes out the reticle, you're still good to go because you still have the etched reticle. You could see that under white light. Disadvantage to it is there's no magnification. So again, when you start shooting further out, you're going to run into issues. You can put a magnifier behind it, and it will get you there, but it's more of a CQB optic. Then we go into the prisms, right? And I think the 2X is a good balance between speed and having enough magnification to shoot a little further out. Like I'm pretty fast with the 2X versus the 3X. For me, the 3X is a little bit slower. It has the advantage further out. But the 2X, to me, it's like you're fast enough and you're accurate enough. So it's like a perfect balance. Disadvantage to it is that you don't have wind holds. So then we get into the 3X. The 3X is a little bit slower up close, but has a better advantage further out. Can you take her away? She's like bumping the thing. And then you get into the 4X, like an ACOG. You have the magnification further out, but that depends on the reticle, right? If you don't have wind holds and auto ranging full high tap size, your hit ratio is going to drop off because now you're holding off into out of space. There's no wind holds. And then it's going to slow down as you get further out. You're going to need a dot up top to be fast to do that. And one of the issues that we ran into in low light through an ACOG is you couldn't really see, right? Do you remember that? Like I've played with that a lot ever since that day. And,
Let me just jump in on that. Like that blew all of our minds. And
right?
I don't know if you had seen that prior to us coming out there, but just to kind of preface this story, guys, like the very first time that Bruce and I went out to visit Dimitri out in Nevada, we're out there and I had my ACOG, right? And, we're looking, it's getting low light, sun's down, it's getting real dark. And I'm looking out there, the ACOG, you could not fucking see the target at all. It was just super dark. And then here I am with this $300 Raptor fucking Chinese made variable optic, right? I could see the target and I could see the reticle because it was illuminated. It was unbelievable. It was like,
well, you shot it for what, like another hour later, remember?
Yeah.
It was like night vision time and you were still hitting it.
Yeah. And there's video of that. You guys can go pull it up from years back.
Yeah.
It's there.
And then you run into the problem. You're in a dark room looking into a light room, right? To where you wash out. Or you're in a very bright sun and it's too bright. You got to tape up. So everything kind of has a positive and a negative to it. An LPVO, now we're getting into LPVOs, right? You can be pretty fast at one power, but like you said, is you're fast at one power, and now you got to sit here and do this to look further out. And now you forgot you did this, and now you're in a room, all of a sudden you're at 6 power. Well, that's a problem, right? You're going to have to do this. So that's an issue too. I like to run a dot on top of an LPVO, especially the enclosed Vulcan for me personally, because I can leave that, that I use that at 1 power. I set the LPVO at 4 power, let's say. So I'm hands free completely. I'm not having to do any of that. Not only that, but I'm passive with night vision through the dot itself, and it acts like a backup. On a multiple target engagement, I can aim with the dot, look into the scope, shoot, look, shoot. And what that does is, like when you're out in the desert and you're going against camouflage targets, and your field of view is like you're looking through a soda straw because you're at 6 power or 8 power, it's hard to go from target to target and very quickly pick up the target within the field of view. It's kind of like a spotting scope. It's why they have a dot on them. So you can line up the dot and then look through the scope. So that's another advantage that I've seen with an LPVO with a dot on top. But it all depends on where you're at and what you're doing, and that'll determine what optic you should be running. If you're in thick woods, you shouldn't be using an LPVO. You should be with like a 1X prism or something. If you're in open country, you should be looking at LPVOs and above. Like where I'm at, right? It's like open. So you need that LPVO. So there are a lot of misunderstandings in optics and what's what and what you should be running and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, when I saw that latest attachment for mounting a red dot on your LPVO come out from Primary Arms, I was like, fuck, I need to get that. So I got that. And then I put it on my, optic. And I want, no, not that one. The one that's on the LPVO.
Oh, the top. Yeah.
And people, I remember seeing some comments like, what's the point of having an LPVO if you're going to have a red dot on top? And it's like, well, I get that. I get that reasoning, right? Yeah, I had that capability of swapping back and forth, but like my, my combat experience tells me that I don't have time to do this, right? Fighting in the Najaf Cemetery, I had an enemy RPG team pop out in front of me 30 yards away. Minutes later, I having a fucking couple guys running out of a building that's like 600 fucking yards away. Right. And I mean, that was all within, seconds of each other. There wouldn't have been time to do this. If I would have done this, I wouldn't have had time to engage them. I did get to engage them because I had a carrying handle, right? There is no this with a carrying handle. But I mean, with having that red dot there, it's like, yeah, you got that instant CQB, right? Like, so you could have your shit maxed out or at whatever your preferred magnification is for the given setting. And then you instantaneously have that 1 power, red dot right there and available for CQB threats. And, oh, by the way, fucking night vision aiming, passive shooting is awesome with those, red dots mounted because it sits higher and it's easier to get behind when you're wearing not.
Yep. So. And a lot of people go out and they'll get these tall mounts, and they don't understand those tall mounts are set for night vision. It's for you to be passively using night vision and get over that pec. And they think, oh, that's going to make me faster because I'm upright, So I hear all kinds of crazy stuff and people running things not knowing why they're running it. It's like if you're not running night vision and passively, you don't need that. I don't understand. The marketing dilutes people's perception of what they need. It's hard as it is, but then you got marketing telling you this and that, or that you need to be, daytime bright. If it's not daytime bright, you can't use it. And it's like, that's not how stuff works. But yeah, it's hard to explain how all this stuff works unless you're in that scenario. And once you're in that scenario, you go, oh, I get it. That's why this is set up that way. Like for me, I'm right-eye dominant. So when I'm here on strong and I switch to support, I have to look through my right eye. I can't look through the scope, but I can look through the dot. So I can make my switches and that people say, well, like, why not run 45? And the reason I don't run 45 is I can't switch. How would I go from here to switch over? So you got to figure out what works for you and your area, how your body works. You have to test things and figure out what you like.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, right? And it's like, and it goes with gear too. So like in the Marine Corps, we have a bad habit of saying, your gear will be set up this way, talking about like your webbing, right? Where your magazine pouches are and shit like that. Now, granted, there are some people that sit there and say, well, this works for me, but it really doesn't because they just haven't had enough training with it, right? And they need to be shown what right looks like. But, in the Marine Corps, we have a real bad habit of just saying like, no, across the board, doesn't matter how much experience you have, your gear will be set up this way, cookie cutter. Everybody will be the exact same. And reality is the only thing that fucking matters in terms of infantry kit and where it's situated on your body is your IFAC, right? There's the uniform standard or where your IFAC is and maybe your tourniquets. Outside of that, that shit should be set up for the individual warfighter, the individual shooter, whatever his billet is within that squad. Like his gear should be set up for him. As long as he's carrying whatever the required fighting load is, I don't care if his fucking magazine is mounted right here. If that's what makes him the fastest fucking mag changer in his squad, but so be it.
Right.
But, it's same with optics in the civilian side of the house. So military, you're going to be given whatever the hell you're given, but civilian side of the house, like absolutely, like pick what works for you. Make sure you're training with it, and not just saying, "Oh, this works for me," and you've never fucking been out there and actually done any training with it.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of these guys too, they look at influencers and YouTube videos, and just because a guy has a YouTube channel doesn't mean he knows what the fuck he's talking about. There's a lot of these guys that are just posting the craziest stuff. And people follow them, and listen to them. And it's like, who are you listening to? What has this guy done in the past? Like, what are his credentials? And they'll give out bad info and people will go out, buy this gear. And then they run into problems because it's like that guy doesn't really know, enough to make these decisions or to review a product and understand how it works. So I don't know, a lot of bad info, a lot of 3-gun competition type optics and reticles crossing over, telling you this is what you need on your AR for defensive purposes. And that's not how it works. So I'm going to step out.
On that note, I kind of want to segue into something else. You came out with, man, it was a year or two ago. You came out with, that new pistol optic that has a chevron in it, right? And in that is a outer circle, right? This was never on any other, pistol mounted red dot before. You have an outer circle that helps you, like when you present your pistol, if you're not properly aligned, you're going to see a portion of that outer circle, and it's going to let you know, like, oh, I need to adjust, to the up and to the left, right? And it just goes without saying, and it helps you. But like, I remember I've got several buddies of mine that run, red dots, and like they've looked through that specific thing and they can't comprehend that big circle. They're like, oh no, that's stupid. You don't need that and everything. I'm like, I run that. I run that pistol mounted optic, and it's been fucking phenomenal. I don't know how many times I've drawn and have seen a portion of that outer circle, and it's got me back on target that much quicker. And
sure.
It's just one of those things where it's like, this is an optic that's actually designed for freaking combat, right? And I'm not just talking combat like overseas. Any type of martial combat, from one shooter to another. This is an optic that's designed for fighting, right?
You're right.
It's not designed for competition shooting. It's designed for fighting. When you're trying to shoot from underneath a car or behind and around some other weird piece of cover, like, this is what these type of things help you, because you're not in your normal traditional shooting position. These type of things get you on target and help you win the fight.
Yeah, I mean, I designed it for combat pistol because in an actual fight, you're not going to stand on the X and shoot at a piece of paper. You're going to move, he's going to move, and all hell's going to break loose. And then when you're shooting in alternate firing positions where you're shooting underneath a vehicle, or you're having to shoot with your support side while you're moving, I don't know. And people say, do your reps. And it's like, dude, I got lead poisoning. I've done plenty of reps, And it's like, if I need that circle, 99.9% of the guys out there are going to need that circle too, especially if you're dynamic and moving. That changes everything. So people don't get the difference between sport and actual, self-defense. But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you are a 3-gun shooter, then by all means, sure, you're not going to have to worry about shooting behind odd pieces of cover. But if you're like the 90% of the rest of the people that own firearms for self-defense, like you don't know what the kind of situation is going to pop up. I just had a mass shooting take place very close to where I live, guys, in Allen, Texas, and that's it. That hit really close to home, and that guy just literally pulled up, jumped out of his car, and started committing murder right there on the spot. And it's like you don't know what the circumstance is going to be in a given situation. And that was in the middle. He started shooting and killing people in the middle of a parking lot. You could be behind a car and diving behind that, and the only piece of cover you have is shooting underneath that car at that suspect or that active shooter, whatever the case may be.
That's like you said, like 3 minutes from you or something.
Yeah, well, yeah. Thanks for outing me. Yeah, I mean it's pretty close.
Sorry, I didn't know that. Yeah, my bad. But yeah. I mean, I designed, and people think that I designed the Vulcan for like new shooters, and obviously new shooters benefit from it, right? But I designed it really, all the stuff that you guys see, I designed it for myself. I designed it for my guns. It's optics and reticles I want on my guns to solve my issues. And it seems like when I solve my issues, I solve other people's issues as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, that's a great freaking optic, and I can assure you, Dimitri, if I ever take down an active shooter, I will be praising you.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of this stuff for me comes from mixed martial arts. I used to do mixed martial arts. That was kind of my thing. It was my life. And after I hurt my back really bad, I couldn't spar all the time, and I kept sparring because it's hard to just go there and watch. And it eventually got to a point to where it's like I'm feeling electric shocks going through my legs, and it was time to transition to guns. So I kind of took that same concept from mixed martial arts: is keep what works, get rid of what doesn't, and improve on efficiency. Right? If you look at like jiu-jitsu, it's designed on being the most efficient movement as possible. So I kind of took those principles and started applying it to the reticle. The reticle is the brain of the optic. And a lot of people don't understand that. That's where everything is happening, is the reticle. They'll talk about how great the glass is, how great the field of view is, this and that. And the reticle is almost like not even thought of. But that's what's going to give you the range to target. That's what's going to give you the wind hold off. That's what's going to give you your mill reading. It's literally the computer of the optic. So I focused on that because that's what's going to increase your hit ratio, is the reticle. Especially on a set and forget optic, you're not dialing the thing in for each shot. You're holding off and holding over. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't, obviously, the people watching, they can't go out there and shoot with you like I have, right? But it's like, Dimitri is a freaking wealth of knowledge, man. And going out there with like Bruce and Ken went out there one time with us, or twice actually. And
Ken
what's that?
Ken rocked it. Like very little training, right? We're like just fit it in the thing and hold off for a win and go. And Ken he did pretty good. I was surprised.
Yeah, Air Force guy.
Yeah. And Bruce too with that 3X, remember? He was like killing it.
Yeah. So again, going back to the very first time we went out there, like, here I am with a, fixed 4 power ACOG, dropped, grand plus on that sucker. And then Bruce is out there with a $300 Primary Arms 3X Prism, right, with an ACSS. And he had his I'm drawing a blank here. Anyways, he had his rifle, $high rifle. I can't remember. It'll come to me in a minute.
A SCAR, wasn't it?
Yes, a SCAR. It was a 5.56 SCAR. And he was killing it with that freaking, Primary Arms 3X.
Yeah.
So it just shows you it's not necessarily the equipment. Even though he, had a $high rifle, he still had a $300 optic on that $high rifle, and he was just murdering it with there.
Well, he had a $3,000 reticle in it.
Yeah.
It's the same math that I used on the ACOG as I used on the 3X.
Yeah.
So,
And those man, those ACOGs with those ACSS, those are still on two of my rifles. Those are like go-to optics. Like if I look outside the window and little Chinese paratroopers are falling down, like the rifle I'm grabbing has that fucking ACSS reticle in an ACOG package with an RMR on top.
So coming out on a 5X now.
That's
And we're
cool.
getting a LPVO.
That's cool.
It's funny, those ACOGs are online now for more than they're like selling for new.
Is that right?
Guys are adding like $300 to them, that kind of thing.
Ah, man, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, because they're not made anymore. So
yeah. What else we got, man? You and I were talking about camouflage. So if you guys haven't seen, we did a camouflage video. I think it was the first time Bruce and I went out there to Nevada. We took a bunch of desert camouflage patterns and we just did this massive desert camouflage effectiveness video, right? Yeah. And at the very end, we pull out, I think it was just one of Dimitri's like own creative patterns that he made. And you can just see how well it blends in. So anyways, you were talking to me earlier about, possibly making some of your own camouflage patterns and putting them into fruition and pumping them out in the uniforms. So can you speak anything to that?
I mean, I have the patterns. The problem is printing them and actually making them into a uniform. And I've met a guy online that prints his own stuff and gets it sewn up and everything. And hopefully something happens there and we can get it going. The pattern itself has proven to be very effective. I mean, you see it in the video. You can't tell where the dirt starts and where the pattern starts. It's like an exact match almost. But the problem is, is printing it and that kind of thing. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a hard market to get into, right? Because you have all these like surplus patterns out there. So it's like those are going real cheap, and then you got like the newer more Gucci stuff out there that usually goes really high price, and then you just have like this multicam saturation, across the board, across the globe. So it really is a really hard market to get into, but regardless, like if you look at Dimitri's creations and his test samples that he has, they are pretty damn freaking effective.
Yeah, it's a tough market. It's hard when you can go hop on eBay and get some Marpat, or like whatever surplus they got.
Yeah, 100%.
But some people want, new Gucci stuff or just newer technology. So we'll see.
What's funny is every year I go to Winter Forge and it's up in Missouri, and we've gotten really lucky over the past few years. Like we've gotten snow. But every year, like when it snows, like there's always a guy or two that has like the latest and greatest like Gucci snow camouflage.
How about a black multicam?
No, pass.
Where does that blend in?
I don't know at all.
I'll tell you when we get off.
That's definitely something that just for cool factor. I've had a few guys like post comments on some of my videos and they're like, when are you gonna do black multicam? And I'm like, dude, that's not gonna fucking blend into the woods. Like, what are you talking about? I tell you what, if you guys want to know the effectiveness of black, go watch. I did a McAfee SOG because McAfee SOG actually would dye their utilities all black. Some of them, not all of them, but they would dye some of their OG freaking uniforms all black so that they could wear that on some of their ops. And there was two reasons really. One, under triple canopy jungle, like there is a lot of shade, right? So it is effective. And then another reason was like a distance, like you look like you're wearing, the black pajamas, like the outfit that the average poor farmer wears out there, right? So there was like an aspect of blending in by looking like something that you're not, right? So like that was a reason for it, but like I don't see any reason why anybody would wear an all black outfit in a desert, in a woodland environment, or even an urban environment for that matter. Like it's an intimidation factor. It's not a actual camouflage, at least in that much, right? So it's like black used to be like when I first came to Marine Corps, black is a tactical color, right? Woodland camouflage has black in it. Black is shadow, right? But not that much shadow. It's like if you're shadow, if you're all black, like you are going to have a silhouette of a human being, and it's going to stand out, just like an all black rifle,
especially under night vision.
Yes. So
that's another thing too. It's like it doesn't blend in at night under night vision. You know, people are like, "Oh, it's a night camo." No, it's not. No. But hey, whatever. Marketing, more marketing.
What else you got, man? What are your latest and greatest designs coming down the pipe?
So we got a 3X Griffin that we just released. The Griffin is basically, it's a mill grid, so you can run your ballistic data for whatever caliber you got and then write it on the side of your rifle. You're going to run into the same issues as far as having to take your eye and look at dope unless you memorize it, as we talked about with the LPVOs. The ranging portion, which is where a lot of the math happens, is built into the reticle. So you can range and go, okay, 500, look, okay, 3 mils. So it's a little bit faster than you would do in a traditional mill system. But, you know, if you're running 5.56, if you're running 308, if you're running 7.62 by 39, there's calibers set already for those calibers where you don't have to do any math. But you get some weird oddball calibers like 6.5 Grendel, like Pig Hunters, you know, and then like all these weird odd calibers or weird loads, weird barrel lengths, and that kind of solves that, is that optic will allow you to get all those to line up as well too. We got a 5X coming with the Aurora coming soon. It'll be up for pre-order. And then there's a mill version as well for the odd calibers again. The Griffin mill is interesting though, because the first 4 mills act like auto range BDC. So 0 to 500, 0 to 600, you really don't need to do any math. You just need to fit and shoot. It's kind of complicated. I don't want to get too much into it, but I've correlated the ranging with the drops on common calibers. So it's a mill system, but it acts like a BDC within the first 4 mills. You still just fit and shoot. But if you want to go beyond and be very, very accurate, then you can run your ballistic calculators and get down to, you know, very precise hits. So that's some of the stuff we got going on. There's a circle dot version of the Vulcan that we're working on that'll be coming out. There's a few things I can't talk about yet. That's not even like, you know, some pretty cool stuff. A prism coming that I'm a big fan of. And yeah, we're working on a few things. I can't really get into the detail of those things, but some pretty cool stuff coming soon. Yeah.
Put up some questions here. Somebody asked about a 4-power 7.62 by 39.
That's not in the works. 7.62 by 39 is really like a, you know, 0 to 500 type cartridge. Once you go past 550 yards, it goes subsonic. And when a bullet goes through supersonic into transonic into subsonic flight, it distorts the angle of attack, and it will be all over the place. So we do a 3X in that caliber, which I think that's, you know, plenty for that. We also do a 1 to 6. So I don't see that coming anytime soon.
So I noticed you've been on bullpup's dick lately. Can you kind of explain that? Like, what's your fascination with bullpups?
So my fascination with bullpups, I'm more of a what can this do that the other thing can't, right? Like, why a bullpup over a standard, you know, rifle? And the main reason for me is being suppressed. You know, you take a 16-inch rifle and you add a suppressor to it. Now you're talking about a giant pool stick. You know, it's like that, and you're putting all the weight in the front. So when you put all the weight in the front, it's kind of like anytime a weapon is front heavy, you're going to get fatigued after a while from picking it up and scanning areas and moving and that kind of thing. It will start to add up. So a bullpup, I can add a suppressor to it and be smaller than an M4 and be able to handle it one-handed. So big deal inside vehicles, inside tight rooms, that kind of thing. So for me, that's mainly the big attraction, is being able to suppress it and still be very short.
Yeah, my only issue is my only real experience with bullpups is when I did an exchange program with the Royal Marines for a couple weeks, and I went over there and I was using their service rifle, and it was just so awkward for me. And granted, I was a gunnery sergeant at the time, so it's like I had already been in for, I don't know, maybe 17, 18 years at that point. And just all those years of using M16s and M4s, and like going from that to a bullpup where most of the weight was in the back, and it just seemed so unnatural. It was like, two mice fucking in a wool sock. It was just, it was wrong.
Yeah, and here's the thing too, is like when I'm under pressure, I start slamming my AR mag on, like say a Tavor, I'm slamming it where an AR magwell would be. And that's just manual of arms, right? If your first rifle ever was that bullpup, and that's all you know, you're going to run that thing like a top, right? Everything is going to be natural. You're not going to have that manual of arms of an M16 or M4 or all that's out the window. All you know is that bullpup. So if you ask the Australians or the British, they don't have a problem with the bullpup because they've never really trained on M16s or M4s.
So I'm wondering about that, because I know the Royal Marines have actually brought in some M4 style platforms or AR style platforms into their inventory. So I'm curious to know like how that switches for them.
The big issue with bullpups is the rail space. So if you're going to mount a PEC and you're going to mount a light, the charging handle is on the left. So now to engage all those things, you have to like cup it, and your forearm has to go up against the trigger guard in order to be able to hit the light or to hit the PEC. That's the thing that I've noticed the most, is like rail space is very limited and very awkward. It's not like an M4 where everything is right there. So there's advantages and disadvantages to them, and I guess the disadvantage is the rail space, and that in the manual of arms. As Americans, we all shoot ARs, so it's really hard to go from thousands and thousands of rounds on an AR to all of a sudden you're running a bullpup. So, but overall, like if that's your first rifle, they're good rifles. They're accurate. People complain about the trigger pull. I'm getting some really tight groups with these things. Just a stock trigger. It's just getting used to it and understanding how it breaks and being consistent. It's just training. It always goes back to training. But as far as being suppressed, to have a 16-inch barrel in a can and still be smaller than an M4 is huge to me. I mean, that's big. I remember handing it to my son, and he was like 12 at the time, and he could hold a suppressed bullpup with one hand and hold it up, to where if I give him an AR, he couldn't hold the AR unsuppressed with just one hand, just because all the weight's is distributed more forward. So they have their advantages, they have their disadvantages. If you have thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds through an AR, I don't recommend a bullpup. But me starting fresh, if you were to tell me like from the very beginning, I would probably grab an AUG, a Glock 19, and like a 6.5 Creedmoor Aero Precision for my long range precision type, shooting, and be good to go. But ARs are everywhere, and we're all trained on them, and everybody, parts are everywhere, mags are everywhere. It's hard to beat a good AR. But it's just been interesting to mess with bullpups. It's just like I've shot so much AR and AK that it's like after a while you get bored and you want to try something new. So that and all this stuff now with the pistol braces, it's like you can't even have a small barreled AR set up properly. You have to like SBR it and all this stuff.
Yeah, it's so fucking ridiculous. Let's see. I think it's funny. So Ken actually I can't remember if he traded or sold to you. He had a Tavor, and I remember you got it and you like gave it a new paint job and you were talking shit to him or something because Ken couldn't get his to work properly or whatever, and you fixed it up.
So we traded, and I had a lot of issues with a Tavor that we had. I ended up having to send the trigger pack back. It's an aftermarket trigger, and get it replaced because it wasn't reliable. Every 3 or 4 mags, I started getting failures to fire. The M1A, I traded him. That gun ran fine. I don't know what he did to it. He took it apart. Once he took it apart and put it back together, he's had hiccups. But that was a very accurate M1A. The M1A is an awesome rifle. I sometimes I'm like, oh, I should have kept it, But unless you're collecting, which to me, like we already did so much work to it on the trigger job and the stock and all this stuff that it's like it wasn't even, as original to collect. It wasn't an original piece anymore. That, and I was looking at my 6.5 Arrow Creedmoors, and I'm like, this Creedmoor will outshoot this gun any day of the week. Why do I need an M1A? Which, I really like my Tavor, so I was like, oh, I can get another Tavor. But yeah, that M1A rocks though. When it runs, when Ken doesn't mess with it.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was you telling me this or somebody else, but it's like, obviously M1A is a great rifle, but like in order to get it to that, like that precision level, like you have to put a lot of money into it, and you compare how much money you got to pour into this M1A to, like an AR to try to do the same type of roll. Like, it's just like, it's not even the same. Like, it's just, you have to pour so much money into this M1A to get to the level of, some of these other rifles that it's just not worth it to the average shooter.
Yeah, I mean, to me, an M1A is more of a DMR gun. 308 as a cartridge, to me, is more of a DMR type cartridge. It's not really a high precision. It's not a very high BC round. Even if you're getting into the 175s, it's just not. It's not as accurate as a 6.5 Creedmoor. It's just not. It's not as efficient in its BC. It's not the trajectory and the wind holds. Everything is just better on a 6.5 Creedmoor. You'll gain more barrel life with the 308. And most of the stuff is going to happen within 800 meters. So in my book, the 308 is live and well. I mean, 308s are awesome. I own a whole bunch of them, but you got to use them for what they're for, which is DMR. It's not a sniper precision type, which you can get into precision type fire with the 308 bolt gun and hand load for it and that kind of thing. But it's like, there's just better stuff out there suited for sniping, But an M1A with a HUD DMR reticle is really hard to beat. That's just, and your average M1A out of the box should shoot about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes with decent ammo, which is pretty good. And a lot of people lie. They go, oh, I shoot a 1/4 inch, and it's like, I got 3 bullets touching, and it's like, yeah, you shot 10 groups, and that just happened to be one of them, and you cherry picked it, and you're, that's not what the rifle shoots, it's just, but yeah, M1A to me is a DMR type gun. Put like a 3-18 on it or a 2.5x10, and it's going to rock. Even an LPVO, I mean, you get a 1-8 on it, you're going to be able to do some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I would agree. I think M1A is still a practical DMR rifle. As a matter of fact, I just did a video, an infantryman's guide video recently over, target priority, and I talk about a designated marksman. I have a scoped M1A as one of the examples. So sure. I would be honored to dispatch Chi-Com paratroopers with an M1A. I think that would be a fantastic opportunity. So it is a good platform. It's just like we were talking earlier, it is, you got to put some money into it if you want to get it to that level.
Yeah, you got the mounts. Like, what did I have on there? I think it's a Sadlac mount. Sadlac. I think it's Sadlac. It's what the Marine Corps was using. And that rifle shot really well. I think I was getting like 0.8, but it had a trigger job. I think the stock was bedded. Yeah, there was some stuff done to that rifle that made it, more accurate than your standard out of the box. But
Well, we just hit an hour. I don't know how much time you have, Dimitri, but I would like to ask this question. Um, what are some of the criticism you've seen of like your reticle over the years, like the different variations of it, and like what's your response to some of those criticisms?
so some of the stuff I've seen is like guys don't understand how chevrons work. They're like, oh, I can't shoot tight with a chevron. And it's like, what do you mean? You're aiming with the chevron tip, not the whole chevron. The whole chevron is meant to be used fast. So when you're talking about CQB, use the whole thing as an aiming point. Just you need to center mass, not pinpoint a shot. Another thing I've heard is like, oh, this reticle is too busy. There's too much stuff going on. Well, you can't take a simple reticle and take it out to 600 meters and hold over. You're going to be way and out of space. How are you going to range estimate? Like you need those tools in order to get range to target and to deal with the wind. Without that, how are you going to do that? So that's.
And on that note, like just going out there and doing the range estimation and hold on. Just doing the range estimation out in the desert, like, yeah, you have silhouette targets out there 18-inch cross width, but you're not always going to have that, right? Sometimes the enemy is going to be sideways to you. You don't have that cross section. So what do you use then? Oh, now you use the height, ratio, right? Oh, now he's in the prone. He's facing you in the prone. Well, what can you go back to? Well, either I can that are calibrated for the size of his head. So it's like the ACSSs that I've seen over the years, the different variations, like they've all had multiple different capabilities in terms of like getting that range estimation.
Yeah, and you can see it evolving, right? Like you had the standard one, and then it went to the Aurora, and the Aurora can do full height half size because you might not see the lower half, or you might be on a moped. Or, there's different things that can go down, and you need to be able to range estimate in different angles. So it's constantly evolving to where, and there's a new version that's going to come out here pretty soon. I can't get too much into it, but it's going to have the ability to kind of like the Raptor M8M. You have your walking, jogging, sprinting leads already built in. If you went through a sniper school, these are leads that you would have to memorize and know. Your walking, jogging, and sprinting leads. You'd have to know these things. So it's easier to put them on the glass and have them right there. So anytime you're dealing with a mover, you're not having to do math. All the auto ranging, all the BDC, all the wind holds, the ability to range estimate different positions, because they're not going to just stand there and look at you. People are going to run. They're going to be in different positions and so on. That and another big thing that's coming is the team navigation. Remember when we did the last time you guys came out, we were going after targets that are not only unknown distance, but undetected. So, and they were camouflaged. They were that's the one color that just blends in like crazy is cardboard. That color is just like gone out there. So you're seeing the target, but Bruce is not. So now you're having to walk Bruce into it. And we're talking about titties, right? Because if you look at the mountain line, there's two lumps right there. So we're like, go off those set of titties, 4 fingers left, 3 fingers. And we're having to figure out weird ways to navigate each other in, to where now with these new reticles, you can put your crosshairs on that, whatever point we both see. And I can tell you go 25 mils to the right, 15 mils down. And that's where your target's at. So there's a lot of tools that are being added into the ACSS, and it's evolving and getting better and better. And, you could see a lot of the competition trying to knock it off, right, and do their versions of it, and they tippy-toe around the patent so they don't get sued and that kind of thing. But yeah, the new versions, the M8, the M8MM, and the new versions coming out are going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, you can just tell. I've seen some of those like knockoff ACSS reticles from other manufacturers, and it's like it's so blatant, right? That they just took your design and like tweaked it, just a
Yeah.
little bit. But I mean, that's a testament to how awesome your design was, right? The fact that they're taking the time to try to, contort this thing to essentially try to bring the same aspects. But I mean, you've shown me pictures where you take their reticles and you try to match it up to like your reticles, and it's like their shit's off, like their dimensions and stuff are off.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand the ballistics. And there was an app called iStirlock, right? And you can punch in your numbers, whatever, and it gives you your drops. 99% of people don't know how to use a ballistic calculator. They don't understand what sight height is. They don't understand what your direction of fire is going to be, how that's going to affect the shot. But more than anything is they'd run the ballistic data, and using the ACSS, they'd go at 600 yards, it's a hair low. But they don't understand your cone of fire at 600 yards is huge. So picture a circle that's like 6 feet in diameter. And if you put that on center mass, you'll see that 3 feet of it they overshoot. You're going to miss. The key thing is to bring that circle down to where everything now is going to center mass. And the more I can bring that cone of fire within the actual target center mass, the higher the hit ratio. So there's a lot that goes into this stuff to calibrate them properly that people don't get. So, yeah. I can go on and on about bitching and complaining about stuff, But, yeah, there's going to be some pretty cool stuff coming soon.
I mean, there has been, since I've known you, there's always been cool shit coming out. So.
How far can you see where you guys are at? Is it, and your videos is pretty wooded?
So where I go and I do my filming, I have an area where I can shoot, but literally I can only really shoot out to about 200 yards. And that's not because I can't go further, but that's just the limitations of the property.
Right.
If I were to try to go further than that, that'd be on somebody else's property, and they probably wouldn't appreciate me shooting ammunition from their side. But I mean, yeah, maybe they would be. It's Texas, but I don't live out in the fucking boondocks, guys. Like, I do travel out into the country to go do my filming, but I'm not in like the Nevada deserts on BLM land where you're shooting. It's a completely different ball game.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I was saying before, people have to understand what optic fits your terrain and where you're at. I see like the guys running like a 14.5-inch barrel, and they're slapping like some 1-10 on there, and it's like that's not the proper optic for that gun. And then they live in the woods and they can only see 50 yards in front of them, and it's like you got a wrong optic there, Or if you live in Alaska and it's freezing cold, you don't need a red dot. You need to go to an etched reticle because that battery is going to die pretty quickly. That's another thing people don't get is the companies advertise times, and those times are set for like a certain setting and a certain condition. You start introducing cold and batteries just zap. So I'm a big fan of etched type reticles for situations like that.
Yeah, 100%. I always, an etched reticle will always be my go-to. Unless I'm issued something else and I don't have the control over it, I will always opt for an etched something. The only thing I can't have etched is, like a pistol mounted optic. So I'm sure that's coming down the pipe, if not already.
Yeah, I've been calling for that for a while. It just technically it's kind of it's hard to do. To get an optic to have huge eye relief like that and be small and fit on a pistol, and still have the ability to use turrets to move stuff around and illuminate, it gets tricky. But yeah, that's something that we're working on to try to solve. But for now, it's just the ACSS Vulcan is really, in my humble opinion, the best solution for any kind of pistol dot. I mean, there's no.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're a little over an hour. If you got any like final questions, go ahead and ask them, and then we'll let Dimitri go. I appreciate him coming on tonight. So
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like dizzy and stuff. Some of you guys might not know, but I've been battling lead poisoning now for some years, and it makes me really dizzy, and it's hard to stay focused.
yeah, if people don't know, like that is a 100% an after effect of like a lot of shooting. So if that doesn't tell you right there that this dude shoots all the fucking time, I don't know what does.
Yeah, I mean, I deal with big companies, and there's ammo. They're sponsoring a lot of the ammo for the testing. So we're shooting. I mean, not just that. I've been shooting over 20 years, reloading my own, and yeah, it's my 9 to 5 is to shoot basically and to develop stuff. So be careful. Make sure that get the D-lead wipes, wipe down your face, your hands. One big thing, make sure you guys aren't doing is driving around with lead. I mean, lead with the steel plates that you're shooting and covering up with a bunch of lead in your car, because now you're contaminating your car. The lead particles are going through all over your car into your carpet, and then tomorrow you got the baby in there and you're driving the kids to school. So be very careful with how you transfer steel plates back and forth to the range.
Yeah. So I remember the very first time Bruce and I went out there to visit you, like, we're loading up all the steel in the back of your truck. We're driving out there, we're setting it up and leave. And then like a year or two later, and after multiple tests, right? Because like your doctors were telling you different stuff before they figured out that it was lead poisoning. The next time or the next couple times we went out there, it was completely different. It's like, no, I don't even want to. I'm using like gloves to handle this stuff, or just made you more cognizant of that.
The cool thing is that there's guys that have placed steel out there that's permanently. So there's a bunch of. I wish I knew about it, right? I wouldn't have to transfer all this steel all these years. But whenever you guys come out, we're going to be shooting a whole bunch of steel. It's not going to be like the cardboards. I know you guys were kind of disappointed in that.
No, man, we always have a blast. So I've just this past year, unfortunately, we were planning on going out there, because going out to Nevada has kind of been a yearly thing for us. But last year we didn't, and the reason for that is because I've only got so much vacation time, guys, and I did a winter forge, a one shepherd semester, and then I did this sear challenge with the Grunt Proof YouTube channel. So by the time it like came around to like going and doing Nevada stuff, like I was tapped out. Like I didn't have any vacation. I just couldn't just up and go. So in case you guys don't know, like YouTube is not a living for me. It's an absolute 100% side hobby. So it is not my 100% gig, which I know a lot of other YouTubers are. So I just can't spend my time traveling and filming videos. I got to fucking, take off work and do all the other stuff.
Are you still hand modeling or no?
Yeah. I'm a voiceover actor. Actually, I got into Pornhub, man. It's just I'm one of those channels where it doesn't show the face. Just yeah, no face.
Jesus.
Sorry, I've had a few drinks.
I know. I told you I was like, yeah, let's have a drink on the thing, and I ended up just drinking coffee.
Shit, I've been drinking Crown this whole time, man. Where are you at?
I'm like dizzy just looking at the screen. So I was like, imagine me drinking too and looking at the screen. You guys would like see me pass out on the video.
Let's see. What kind of questions we got here, guys? So here's one. It says, how do you safely transport steel targets?
You would need a truck, put it in the bed of your truck. And then you would have to use gloves to get the steel out and put it in your stand. And then when you're done transferring the steel plates and you want to use your truck for, I don't know, let's say you're going to go pick up groceries, that kind of thing. They make a D-lead detergent and put that all over the back of your truck and brush it out and clean out and get all the lead particles out. If you're just going to use the truck, for
shooting, just for shooting, just throw your steel back there. Just keep it away from your compartment. I guess another thing you could do is get a container and just put the steel in there and close the container. You just don't want the lead. Like, people picture lead and they go, oh, lead is heavy, it's not going to fly around the room. It's going to fly around the room. When those rounds hit those steel plates, they're just, that lead particles everywhere. So yeah, just common sense. You don't want skin to skin exposure. You don't want to be breathing it, so you don't want it in the car with you. So you need to seal it somehow. I guess a real cheap way is put a trash bag around it. You know? Yeah.
All right. So John from Alpha Charlie Concepts and UW Year, who you know, he says, you for president, 2024 for SecDef. I think you got too many skeletons in your closet.
I didn't hear what you said. It broke up. Can you hear me still or no? I don't know if you could hear me, but I'm frozen right now, or you're frozen on my end.
I think the communists were blocking my signal again, guys.
I don't see me.
You're in there. I think your camera's disabled. Sorry, guys, for technical difficulties here. Freaking Chi-Coms. Go figure. I've got you on speakerphone, though, if you want to talk through here.
Should I get off the line?
We can wrap up. We're at 1 hour 20 minutes. So if you want to say something to the people, I've got you on speakerphone, so everybody should be able to hear you.
Just keep training, be safe, focus on range estimation and wind hold off. Those are key things to getting further out. And figure out what works for you, and don't just listen to some guy online. Doesn't really, a lot of these young kids are on this crazy stuff. And that's just not how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, couldn't agree more, guys. There's I don't want to shit on anybody because I encourage anybody to start a YouTube channel, but just be cognizant of who you're listening to out there, and look at experts like guys like Dimitri who spent their whole life shooting and designing reticles and stuff. Like those dudes know exactly what they're fucking talking about in terms of technical knowledge of like bullet drop and reticle design and like weapon performance and stuff like that. So absolutely. I've done numerous reviews of primary arms optics that feature ACSS reticles, and they've all been fantastic. So that's my recommendation. So this has been a great stream. I appreciate you jumping on tonight with us, Dimitri.
Yeah, man, anytime. I really enjoyed it.
So we're going to close this out. Unfortunately, the Chinese have intervened in our live stream and have caused us some technical difficulties. So we're going to close this up, guys, and I appreciate you jumping on tonight. Have a good night. Keep finding a good fight, and Semper Fidelis.
They don't want me to be president. That's why.